Single Subject Research Design by Mallory Coeth and Anna Stewart. What is single subject research design? Single subject research is an experimental design that is quantitative in nature and focuses on studying single individuals. It requires the administration of an intervention. Individuals' behavior before, during, and after the intervention must be closely monitored. This is to determine if the intervention affects the behavior. The interventions will typically take place in the student's natural setting. Random assignment to a control or experimental group is not necessary due to the fact that there is often only one participant. The participant will act as their own control group, and a large amount of data will be collected over time in regards to their behavior. Single subject research will also sometimes be called N of 1 research, ABA reversal design, or multiple baseline design. This should not be confused with a case study research design, since they are typically more qualitative than quantitative. Identifying characteristics of single subject research. The first indicator that a study is a single subject design is that the research problem will identify an intervention that will seek to change a behavior that is considered problematic. The hope is that this intervention will improve this behavior in some way. The second indicator is the number of participants. Although this is called single subject research, there will sometimes be up to 8 participants. However, most often there will only be one individual. These participants will be chosen because they would most certainly benefit from the behavioral change that would be caused if the intervention was successful. The third characteristic is the collection of baseline data. Baseline data will be collected and stated in the methods section to address the participant's behavior before the intervention is started. The behavior will continue to be monitored throughout the intervention to identify the effectiveness of the intervention. It must be very clear that the intervention is the factor that is causing the change in behavior. Fourth, single subject research will often use graphs to plot the participants' behavior throughout the study. This allows for the researcher to identify trends and changes occurring in the data. This is often used in place of statistics, since the purpose of this research is to create a meaningful change in the performance or quality of life for the student, despite whether or not the research shows statistical significance. The researcher will typically comment on how the behavior changed due to the intervention, after stopping the intervention, or during several interventions. The last characteristic is in the conclusion section. The big question that will be answered in the conclusion section is, did a change in behavior occur? And was the intervention the cause of this change? The high level of control over the intervention allows for researchers to make strong claims about the intervention that took place and the change it made, or didn't make, in the participants' behavior.
What types of questions does single subject research design address? Single subject research design is an experimental study. It tests things and then sees what the results are and if those results fit the hypotheses that were created. One of the questions that it addresses is, does the intervention reduce or increase targeted behavior? An example of this would be if a teacher notices that students are off task and are misbehaving. So every 10 seconds, the teacher provides the students with positive compliments. The teacher will then observe how this is working and will determine if this targeted intervention is working. If so, she will continue to use this intervention and then she will wean off giving the positive compliments to the students to keep them on track. If, for example, the students start to misbehave when the teacher stops giving the positive compliments, she knows that the intervention of giving them those compliments worked. Another question is, which intervention is the most effective? This would have to do with if a teacher, for example, is giving the positive compliments and is also passing out the candy to students to help them behave better, she could see which of those two are most effective, and then to help her teach better and have the kids focus better, she could continue using the most effective strategy. Another question is, does the intervention cause a change in behavior or outcome? In a study completed by Bear, Torgerson, and Kreveston in 2008, researchers used single subject research design to target multiple behaviors of an individual who was selectively mute in 3 different school settings. So they figured out how her behavior changed and how the settings affected her behavior and being selectively mute. Other questions that this study answers is the intervention more or less effective when combined with another intervention? Like I talked about, how if a teacher used the candy and the positive compliments, we could see how the student's behavior is affected using those two. Other questions could be, is direct observation utilized to identify the target subject's character? Is test instruments used to identify the target subject's character? Are there any relationships between the target behavior and the notice of subject's characters? Or is the explanation related to the condition and difference of baseline and interventions? So those are just a few different questions that could be addressed for single subject research design.
Strengths of a single subject research design. This research has strong internal validity. Researchers are able to manipulate the independent variables, which cause them to have a lot of control over the dependent variables. The experiment will be kept very consistent in terms of all variables, such as time of day, location, atmosphere, noise level, seating, and more. Single subject research is also considered a very feasible and efficient way to conduct research and collect data. In addition, this research is also considered very rigorous and structured in nature. Finally, the design of single subject research is uniquely tailored to investigate the effectiveness of interventions.
There are many limitations of single subject research design. One of the limitations that there is the ethical concerns. Consent must be given prior to participants signing on to participate in a study. Also, when they sign the consent form, they must be told what the study will entail, and they must be told all about it. This is so that they are aware of the withdrawal periods that may occur, which could definitely cause ethical concerns. Also, this study can be very time consuming and can take up to multiple months to test a participant for one of the studies. One of the major concerns of single subject research design is that because there are only 2 things being compared, interventions shown to be effective for a single individual may not be effective with other individuals, and these effects may not even replicate when they are re-administered to the same individual at a later time. So a lot of things go into this, and external influences definitely come into play. According to Cratchwell, things such as child's moods or something that happened at home could definitely affect the results that they will find in the study. Also, due to this study, interventions may be delayed. When participating in a single subject research design, due to the small number of subjects being researched, the results could be different than expected. Until a baseline pattern becomes more apparent, interventions may be delayed for this case. The last limitation that we found would be that some questions asked require group answers. For example, how is evidence from a single individual relevant to others? This is a question that would require groups of people to answer, not just one or two people to answer. How to know if single subject research design is well done. In order to determine if it is well done, visual comparison of two or more things can be looked at. Single subject researchers typically analyze their data by graphing the data and then making judgments about whether the independent variable is affecting the dependent variable based on level, trend, and latency. In 2 slides, you will be able to take a look at graphs from a single subject research design study, and you will be able to look at those things. Another way to determine if it is well done is by being able to replicate the study. There are 3 different types of replications. Direct replication involves repeating the same procedures by the same researcher, including the same provider of the treatment in the same setting and in the same situation, but with different clients who have similar characteristics. The strength of this is that when the findings are similar and consistent with others, you know that the study was completed well. When the results are inconsistent or very off, differences in the individuals can be examined to identify the characteristics that may be related to success or failure. The next type of replication is systematic replication. This is when you repeat the same experiment in different settings using different providers and other related behaviors. It helps understand when interventions are successful in certain climates and unsuccessful in other climates. The last replication is clinical replication. This is when different interventions are combined to treat multiple problems. For example, in a clinical setting, if a teacher is trying to minimize negative behavior and increase students' concentration, she may give compliments to students every 30 seconds and use nonverbal communication such as tapping the board to refocus students. If this is successful in not only that classroom but different classrooms, you know that this study is well done.
Research-based single-subject literature study. The study cited below is a single-subject alternating treatment design. This means that the study will be alternating between 2 different interventions to determine the effects each have on the participants' behavior. The participants in this 6-week study were 6 4th-grade students who were currently receiving supplemental reading support. The study's purpose was to compare a close reading instructional routine to a different validated reading comprehension intervention, known as collaborative strategic reading. Alternating between the two, each intervention strategy was implemented once every 2 weeks. Bordeaux, Johnson, Mooney, and Lastrips explained that they used this design to allow them to directly compare the effectiveness of the 2 comprehension strategies on students' reading and writing performance. The research questions that were set out to be answered were: what were the effects on the students' reading comprehension during the implementation of close reading and the collaborative strategic reading using science content. 2. What did students like and dislike about the two comprehension strategies? In the procedures section, the researchers described the controls they had over the students' classroom. Same classroom, same seats, same timing of assessments, etc. This is something indicative of a single subject research design. Lastly, you can see that the researchers used several graphs in order to visually analyze the results of the day's assessment used for each intervention strategy. These will be used to help determine the effectiveness of each intervention.
Here are the resources that we used for our single subject research design project. If you would like to learn more about single subject research design, feel free to click on the links to explore more information about it. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. Thank you.